Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live. Apologies. For some reason, my stream keeps going down. I don't know why. So, please bear with me. I know that last week was plagued with one or two difficulties because something fudged up my stream at some point. And so the stream went down last week. I apologize about that. I still have no idea what caused that. But tonight, I think I know exactly what's going on. We have a storm here in Scotland called Storm Corrie. And so the wind is playing havoc with our electrics at the moment. And my computer has rebooted itself as a result about 10 minutes ago before showtime. So it could be that that's what's causing the issue tonight. So we'll just have to kind of just go with the flow, and hopefully we will not get any buffering. But we're gonna have to keep an eye on it. So hope everyone's had a great week. I've had a very busy week because I've had lots on outside of work as well. I've been rehearsing pretty much every night for the last week for a show that I did tonight, and I got home about half an hour ago and started the computer and everything and got set up for the show, and then our power kind of went off for about 3, 4, 5 maybe seconds, and that was enough for my computer to shut down, and then I had to restart it. And then when I restarted it, the audio was all messed up and destroyed, so I had to restart the computer again. So I'm hoping that we're not going to be plagued with those kind of errors this time anymore. So hopefully not. But if you're wondering what the opening music is, Old School Funk and Soul is wondering what it is. It's a little kind of reggae kind of ish thing that I've been toying around with for a wee while as a song. I haven't really had time to do anything with it. But I do have lyrics for this and a melody line in mind and some other chord changes. I just haven't actually got to pretty much getting any further with recording it than the intro. But there is actually a whole song for this. And you're only hearing basically the first 8 bars over and over again. But suffice to say that this song will be finished and fleshed out and will feature on an EP, which will be coming up hopefully in the summertime next year. So, and that'll be 5 years since my last record. So much for being incredibly productive with my output. The last 5 years I have not been. I have put out a single every year so far, but not really got any further than actually making a whole record. So, but I will be doing that. So it will be out in the summertime, hopefully in 2022. At least that's the plan. Old School Funk and Soul is saying, what is the Rhodes preset in the opening music track? It's the same in Cosmic Girl by Jamiroquai. It's actually this. It's just my own Rhodes sound coming from the clavier node. And it's just going through a particular signal chain. Hang on just a minute and I will get this open up for you so you can hear it. That's basically all it is. It's just my Fender Rhodes and it's going through, in fact, why don't I show you the damn signal chain? Why don't I just actually do that? Okay, so the signal chain that I have for that is, the first thing we've got going on is we've got pedal board, and we're going through the phase 90, And we're not actually going through the second channel, which is the second thing, which is this chorus, but we are going through the delay pedal. And it's a stereo channel. Even though it's a mono instrument, I've just changed the channel condition to stereo. And then after that, we're going into X-Trem, which is giving us a nice bit of a kind of stereo panning effect. And then finally, we're going into an EQ, which just has a little bit of a mid-scoop, a little bit of a boost at 2K, so you get a little bit more of the attack of the instrument, and then a little bit of a high pass at about 90. And that's mostly it, really. But I agree, it's a nice sound. That's pretty much it, really. But yeah, I thought that that might interest some of you that are into that kind of Fender Rhodes going through kind of a phaser and that kind of thing, that kind of classic 1970s Fender Rhodes sound. I personally love that sound. And if I solo up the track itself, turn off the monitor button just for a minute. Yeah, it is distorting. That's the other thing it has. It has just a little bit of distortion, which is actually built into the piano sound, which is fine. I like just a little bit of distortion on the Fender Rhodes. So that's actually deliberate. So there you go. What is the name of the Node preset? It's just the Fender Rhodes Mark II. Is what it is. So this has got the Mark 1, the Mark 2, and the Mark 5 built into it. And I am using the Mark 2. Mostly because that's the one I actually physically have, not in this room, downstairs in the lounge. I have the Mark 2. And we keep it in there because it's kind of our lounge piano, basically. So there you go. Levels between the keyboard and the voice are way off. Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah, it might be a little bit loud. Okay. That should be better. Hopefully that's better. Waveform Laboratory is here, trying to figure out splitter in frequency mode. Does anyone know how steep the crossover filter is? That's a good question. I don't really know. I don't really use the splitter all that much. Certainly not in frequency mode. I don't use it. I think it's just a straight split. I don't even know that it necessarily has a curve to it. But yeah, that's a good question. Those of you that do use the splitter could probably answer that one more thoroughly than I do. Okay, let's go up to the top. Just Bob was in first of all. He says, happy Sunday. Try to be here as long as I can under the weather. Yeah, I totally understand that. There's a lot of people at the moment that I know personally who have got colds or they've had flu or something similar that's kind of piggybacking alongside COVID and that kind of thing. So yeah, I know a lot of people that got colds at the moment. In fact, my son has a little bit of a cold. So it is doing the rounds, that's for sure. Rich is here. Bob's New York is here. Kevin's Guitar Story is here. Cal Jadruzia, Kingston Dread over in the Caribbean is here. Don Oliver's here. Paul Morgan, hello everybody. John Lake is here. Tony Stringer is here as well. Low Ends is here. And as I said, old school funk. It's all been answering his questions. Thomas Melkson over in the Philippines is here. Who else do I see? Ironweed Studios is here as well. Awesome. Anybody else here? I think that's it. I think we've got kind of a small little gathering. And I totally understand that. It's kind of, we're in the lead up to Christmas. So a lot of you guys are going to start getting busy with getting things organized for Christmas, or you're playing Christmas gigs like I have been. Totally understand that. So if we have a short show tonight, that will be okay. Dwayne is here as well. Hello, Dwayne. Good to see you. Let's see. Anybody got any Studio One questions? Because otherwise, this is going to be a real short show. And it'd be nice if it wasn't. Just got the IK Multimedia Mark V rendering called Electromatic. Interesting. I don't think I've heard of that one. There's Lounge Lizard, which is very good, or certainly was very good a few years ago. I have used that before. Before I acquired my Rhodes, actually, that's what I used. I used Lounge Lizard because it's a pretty good emulation of a Fender Rhodes Mark II, I think it is. And I quite liked that. But as I say, once I got the real thing, I didn't really need it anymore until I started moving houses a bit and renting houses, and then moving it around just became a headache because when you move it, you have to tune it, which is a pain in the butt, and it's also really, really heavy. Any of the Fender Rhodes stage pianos, they are really heavy. And it takes a couple of people to move them about, and then you've got to move them about very carefully, otherwise they go out of tune, and then you have to tune them up, which is what I did before, and then here, moving in here. Hopefully this is its final home. It's, we have no intention of moving again, pretty much. So hopefully this is its final home. And the other problem is, because it's a classic mechanical instrument, getting parts, if you need them, is not exactly easy to come by. There's a guy down in Manchester, down in England, who services electric pianos, particularly Fender Rhodes, but he does Wurlitzer A200s as well. And if I need parts, that's who I go to. But if it needs a service or it needs an overhaul, that's a trek, because we have to put it in the car, we have to drive down, we have to spend 2 days in Manchester just to get the thing kind of overhauled. So that's where this guy comes in real handy, because it sounds exactly like the real thing. It really actually does. It's not a joke. It really does sound like the real thing. So that's why I have this here in the studio rather than the actual one downstairs. So there you go. Did we all wear Santa suits at the gig? No, we didn't. No, it wasn't that kind of gig. Yeah, it wasn't really that kind of a gig. Yes, we have enough people for a jury. Yes, we do. Hopefully this is not a hung jury. Kingston says, did you know Donny Hathaway used a Wurlitzer on his songs but got it to sound like a Rhodes stage at times? There is a way to make the Wurlitzer A200 sound a little bit like a Rhodes, but because it's a different design and it's a different mechanism, it's really hard to make a Wurlitzer sound like a Rhodes. But, I mean, this actually also has a Wurlitzer in it as well. I can demonstrate the Wurlitzer. Hang on. Here we go. Here's the Wurlitzer. It has a different kind of tonality to it. And tends to have like a tremolo quite often. if we go back to the Rhodes Mark II. Take off the heat a little bit so that it's not distorting. So yeah, they sound quite a bit distinctly different in tone, because they are a different design, and it's kind of a different mechanism. The actual beaters that strike the tines on a Wurlitzer are different than they are on a Fender Rhodes, and it's a different pickup system as well. Six Squirrel is here. Awesome. Good to see you, mate. Let's see. Rich says, Waveform Laboratory, it doesn't work like a filter crossover. It's immediate. That's kind of what I thought. That's what I thought. There is no 12 dB per octave crossover or anything like that. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought it was an immediate crossover. Just Bob says, what are ghost faders? How do you set them up? And what are they used for? Ghost faders are for channels that have no outputs. So you would use them maybe in a more EDM kind of setting, where you need to use an invisible kick track to duck like maybe a synth part, so that the synth part has a kind of pulsing to it, which is in time with the music, but doesn't have maybe its own attack. So it's not like you're kind of going on your keyboard, but you know, it's more sustained sound that you played on your synth, which is then being ducked by a trigger. Now, in a lot of EDM situations, not all of them, but a lot of them, you would have the kick drum trigger the compressor that ducks the synth so that it's out of the way of the kick, and then it comes back in when the kick's not playing, and you get that kind of throbbing, pulsing effect with the synth. But there are situations where you don't want the kick, you just want the synth to still be triggered by it. And that's where you would use a ghost channel, a ghost fader. And basically it has no output. Gregor has done a video on this, because those are the kind of things that he uses quite a lot. So it's worth going to check out his video on ghost tracks and ghost channels, that kind of thing. He's done that. It's not really a genre of music that I work in, so I don't really know that much about it, but that's kind of the gist of it in short. So that works for you. I bet jamming with you is the shit. I don't know about that. I have been playing for over 30 years, and I've been playing professionally since 1992, which I guess is quite a long time. And so, yeah, and I've been involved in lots of jam sessions in that time as well. Sixcrow says, I feel a bit stocked up on tools to keep developing my craft for lyric writing for a while. However, what are some of your reliable go-to craft tools for composition? For composing, my go-to is this guy. Although I don't necessarily exclusively compose on a keyboard instrument. Sometimes it'll come from a guitar. I do have a guitar. It's in its case at the moment, but I have an Ibanez jazz guitar, kind of semi-hollow body, which is in its case at the moment. And so sometimes something will come out of that. Maybe a particular rhythm or a set of chord changes will come out of that, and then I'll just record that into Studio One if an idea strikes me. But there are two main things that I use for composing. One of them I can take literally anywhere, anytime. And I could compose any time of the day or night. And that's this, my brain. Ever since I can remember, when I was a kid, I would go to bed at night and I would swear that there is music in the room. I would swear that somebody had left a record player on, or somebody had left the radio on, and I'd wake my parents up. I'd say, could somebody go and turn the radio off, or could somebody go turn the record player off? And they'd be like, there's no music. And that's when I started to realize that the music was in my head, and that it wasn't a record that any of my parents had. It was not in any of our record collections. What was actually happening was my brain was composing music, and it was loud to my ears. I could hear it in my head. And at first it was distressing and it was distracting and it was at times completely and utterly overwhelming. Until I realized that this could actually be a useful, helpful tool. And so I started to make use of it rather than considering it an annoyance or considering it some kind of psychological or mental health problem, which it probably is. It probably stems from some kind of mental health issue, I would think. Because I would imagine it's not normal for you to hear music in your head that is loud enough that you think the radio's been left on. And you're the only person that can hear it. I would imagine that that's probably not normal. So I guess I kind of started to use it as a tool. And to see it as actually a benefit, as something useful. So it would mean that if I have this piece of music playing in my head, I could effectively, in my head, kind of envisage like a mixing console, and I could solo the individual parts, and then I could just start writing them down. And this is like before there were DAWs, before there was notation software. And so that's what I would do. I would just literally transcribe onto manuscript paper what I was hearing in my head, just soloing an individual part. And then I would play that part against another part and make some adjustments. And that's how I composed until computers became really, really big and really important and really, really powerful. Like they are now. They are phenomenally powerful. So now I use a combination of the two things. So sometimes something will come just out of me just doodling at the piano, like coming up with a little groove, a little riff, or a set of chord changes. Or something will come to me, like I said, at night when I'm trying to sleep. And so I have to, I have to either keep a notepad by my bed, or, which is what in fact I do, I keep a notepad by my bed so I can write stuff down real quick. Or I just leave my gear on in the studio. I don't leave Studio One open, but I leave my computer on. And that means that if I do have something which I think is worth really, really, really pursuing, I can just get out of bed, I can come in here, I can open up Studio One, and I can just start putting stuff into Studio One. So that's kind of what I do. It's probably not the normal way. So I would say reliable tools for most other people would be, maybe a keyboard instrument, maybe a guitar, and certainly a notepad. I'm old school, so I would say a notepad is an incredibly useful tool, especially if you're away from your computer, and especially since, there are not really any DAWs. There are some. I mean, I think there's a mobile version of GarageBand on your iPad. So if you have an iPad, you can use GarageBand on your iPad and you can create your ideas that way, or you can note down your ideas, and then maybe you could export the stems into Studio One. That would certainly be one way to do it, until such a time in the future when, maybe there would be some kind of version of Studio One that's on a mobile device. Who knows? I mean, I have no idea. But wouldn't that be cool? Studio One on an iPad or Studio One on a phone or something? That would be amazing. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. And Ronald Figura says, there's medication for hitting things in your head. Yes, there most certainly is. And I have been recommended medication. Trust me. And in fact, I did take medication. And the problem was, it fixed it. I no longer had the music in my head. And I missed it. I immediately felt my world was empty without it. So I stopped taking the medication and the music came back. And I've just learned to either have it in the background or the foreground. It makes no difference. When I want it in the foreground, I can pay attention to it, but the rest of the time, it's nice and safely in the background. I don't really notice it, for the most part. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Six Royal says, interesting, perhaps I should ask a question pointed toward my needs. What are some of the craft tools which you teach compositionally for contrasts and arrangements? Oh, those kind of tools. Okay, so like melodic devices, those kind of things. There are plenty. And some of those are really, really helpful if you happen to be struggling with a writing block. For example, take a short idea based out of a pentatonic scale. So, for example, the C pentatonic scale. Let's switch over to the piano for this. So, for example, C, D, E, G, A. And base a melody out of those 5 notes. And here's the thing you can do. You can take an idea, let's say, what did I do there? I repeated my idea. Repetition is incredibly powerful. That's tool number 1. Tool number 2 is taking your idea and playing it backwards. So you literally reverse it. So if your melody starts on the A, then you start it down on the C, and so on and so forth. So you literally play your melody backwards. Another thing you can do is you can turn the melody upside down. So if the melody ascends originally, then you make it descend, and vice versa. Another thing you can do is you can extend it. So you could maybe, John Coltrane has an improvisational technique that he applies, which is called additive melody. And what he does is he takes a phrase and then he would add a note to it or 2 notes to it. And then he'd add another 2 notes to it. So he'd play the phrase again and add 2 notes to it. Play the phrase again and add another 2 notes to that. Play and add another 2 notes, and so on and so forth. So he's extending the melody by addition. But you can also do it the other way around. You can subtract from your melody. And use that as a compositional device. Now, if we take something really simple, like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, for example. How does it go? I'm trying to remember how it goes. Hang on. See how this melody starts off quite simple. It starts with an octave leap. And then we descend down to the major 7th. And so it has a shape to it. Somewhere Over the Rainbow has a shape to it where it kind of goes leap, then it goes by stepwise motion, a leap down, and then stepwise motion, a further leap down, and then stepwise motion until we settle back on the tonic. So it's taken basically an idea and shifted it around. So basically that's the shape of the melody. So you can take an idea and you can move it around so that it follows the chord changes. So, you know, let's say our chord changes are, so C, and I've just extended that, I've played that backwards. And then let's say we move it around a little bit. So, and so just by using chord tones, so using the notes of the chord, so you can take an idea and you can move it around so that it follows your chord changes. So you can take your melody and then you can transpose it. So there's a few little devices for you that will help you develop melodic ideas. Take a small idea and then transpose it around, and then develop the idea as you go through your composition. In terms of arrangement, there are already existing frameworks that you can use. For example, you could use the standard 32-bar AABA form, which is where you take a theme which is maybe 8 bars long, you repeat that theme, so you get an A, then an A again, and then you have what they call the release, which would be the B section, and then you come back to your A section again. So basically, you have two pieces of melody, and the first of which, the A, you repeat essentially 3 times with a B section stuffed in the middle. And so you can develop kind of compositional efficiency, shall we say, by doing that. And so your 8 bars for your A section, you can break that down into 2 4-bar phrases. And you can maybe have one that goes ascending and then the second 4 bars go descending. And then you repeat that, and then when you come back to your final A section, you can maybe do a variation on it by flipping that so that everything is reversed, but it's the same notes. You just reverse everything. And so that will create some natural variations. So I hope that helps you. Ironweed says, I think you can do BandLab on your phone or tab. Didn't really know that. Studio One has a presence on iPad with Capture Duo. Yeah, Capture is a slightly different piece of software. But yes, you can certainly get ideas down using Capture. Excuse me, using Capture. And also you can use Capture for recording a live show or recording a jam session. Really useful for those kind of things. So definitely a great little device, that. Just Bob says it's like learning to live with tinnitus. Yes, absolutely. It most certainly is. With tinnitus, you learn what the frequency is. And then you learn to kind of just tune it out or put it in the background. Sometimes tinnitus can be really offensively loud, and sometimes it can be in the background and you can kind of just put up with it. Kind of depends. But good question. It felt like it is steeper than an 18 dB per octave. I'll get out the end. Right, okay, cool. W5 family is here. Hello, folks. Good to see you. Welcome to the show. 6 squares. Great tools for me. I truly appreciate it. Awesome. Yeah, so there's plenty of good devices you can use for melody writing. Inversion, which is where you literally flip it upside down. There's retrograde inversion, which is where you play it backwards and upside down. And of course, there's retrograde where it is just backwards. And those are actually really great if you're into things like tone row composition. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go and do a little bit of Googling on Schoenberg and Webern and Berg, who were 20th century composers, and they developed a 12-tone system of basically organizing what we would by and largely generally call atonal music. So that atonal music could be understood by the listener. Because, I mean, the danger with composing in an atonal context is that it just sounds completely random, and with random music like that, for the most part, most people can't listen to it. And the reason why most people can't listen to it is because when it's really, really, really random, it doesn't make any sense. So what people like Schoenberg and Berg and Webern did was they developed this system that applied some restrictions and some rules to govern how atonal music should work so that the listener can understand it better and so that it's actually much more listenable too. Albeit it sounds weird when you compare and contrast it with tonal music, which most popular music is. Most popular music is based around a major minor tonal system. You don't really hear a whole lot of atonal pop music. I suppose there are some bands where you think, you know what, that music is so bad it sounds like it could be atonal, but it probably isn't. It's just based in a tonal system, and you may just not like it, and that's fine. Everybody has their personal preferences. So but yeah, that's certainly something to check out. Let's see, Bobby Booth is here. He says, sorry I'm late. Bobby, we are very glad you're here. Lauren says, does Studio One still have the remote phone app? Yes, Studio One remote is still around and doing fine. I have it on my phone here. I have it on my iPad. So one of my favorite little tricks actually is I can be in the bathroom next door. I have Studio One remote on my phone, and my kids like to sneak into my studio to play my piano when I'm not looking, because they think that I don't know that they've gone in there, but I know exactly what they're doing, and I know that they've gone in there, and I like to use Studio One remote to start Studio One up, and it freaks them out. Because it's just like, your computer just started playing music by itself. And I'm just like, no. I triggered it. It's hilarious. It's very entertaining. So yeah, Studio One remote is available in the Google Play Store for Android, and it's also in the Apple App Store. So if you think those are going to be useful for you, go get them. They are actually really, really useful. And since version 5 of Studio One, it has actually become incredibly powerful, because it's not just a case you can start and stop Studio One, and you can play with the faders, and you can practically mix sitting on the toilet. I'll put it like that. You can pretty much mix sitting on the toilet. And Steve Louth has just walked in and says, hey, just dropping in. And he probably just heard me say, you can mix sitting on the toilet, completely out of context. And he's probably laughing. But yes, you can pretty much sit with your phone, and if your toilet is within range of your Wi-Fi and your studio, and you can hear the music coming out of your studio, you can mix on your phone on the toilet. I'm not saying I have done it though. But yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And certainly for live performance, it's incredibly powerful now, because you can trigger a range of track sections. And with the show page, you can trigger sections of a song. You can loop a section of a song. And you can set up for the next song, all from the remote app. It's very, 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 very powerful indeed. Makes only if in drop D. Yep. Kappa 1-2. Yep. Absolutely, Just Bob. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I like the Studio One remote. Very useful. So, small crowd in tonight. We've only got about 20 people. We peaked at about 21 so far. So we got like 15 minutes or so left of the show. Anyone got any other Studio One questions? Let's keep it moving, folks. So if you're wondering why the Christmas kind of background, that's going to stay up for the whole month of December. And then when we get into January the 5th, January the 6th, then it will go back to the normal background because we'll no longer be in Christmas mode. iWeird Studio says, I love using the Studio One remote in my vocal booth, which is a 2011 Honda Pilot in the garage. Wow! Your vocal booth is your car. That's cool. For those of us not dedicated enough to mix in our toilet, it would be incredible if Studio One added optimization for touchscreen monitors. That has already been done, my friend. That has already been done. Studio One was optimized for touchscreen way back in 2015 for version 3. It was one of the selling points actually for Studio One 3 was that it now works on touchscreen. It works on the Slate Raven very well. I know people that use it. In fact, one of my friends who has a studio in the other side of Edinburgh, it's harder for me to get to now that I don't live in Edinburgh anymore. But he has a studio. He is a convert from Logic Pro. He used Logic Pro for decades and now uses Studio One. And he has a Slate Raven. And in fact, he has 2 Slate Ravens because the guy is like ludicrously swimming in money. He has 2. And he has one which is like for his main arranger view, and then he has the mixer on another Slate Raven which is kind of embedded into his desk, and he moves constantly between the 2, and it's all done by touchscreen, and it's amazing. It takes a wee while to calibrate and it takes a wee while to set up, but once you get used to how the Slate Raven works and how Studio One integrates with the Raven aspect, it's really, really good. Really, really cool. I personally couldn't get used to it, but I mean, he is totally a whiz. He's just like dragging, dropping, swiping, pinching, and you know, doing all sorts of things on the screens, and it's great. So it does work. It does work. Now, as to whether you can move multiple faders with multiple fingers, I don't think I've ever seen him do that. So I don't know whether that's possible or not. I think probably you have to select all of the channels first in order to be able to move the faders together. But yeah. Let's see. Okay, so I checked out the cutoff. Is curious. Little shaker. Okay, cool. Peter Brooks, hello Peter, good to see you, mate. He says, Studio One Remote, I'm trying to see the benefits. Studio One Remote is incredibly useful. And I think one person in the chat here has highlighted one of them, and that is if you're in if you have a separate dedicated vocal booth, and rather than having to run from here, hit record, run, get into your vocal booth in time to start singing, you can use the Studio One remote, have it in the vocal booth, and you can control Studio One completely from the vocal booth. No need to run between the 2 places. That's one use case. Live performance is another use case, because you can use the show page on the Studio One remote, and you can trigger different sections of your song. You can have you can set up different sections so that they loop. Like if you want to extend out a guitar solo, let's say your guitar player is really, really going for it and you love what he's doing. Normally he gets 16 bars, but on this particular occasion, you just like, let's just let him let rip. So you can just tap the arranger section in that particular song and just make it loop a few times and your guitar player can keep going. So you can do that all from the Studio One remote app. And you can have like a discrete laptop hidden away, which is running Studio One, which your audience doesn't see. And you're doing everything from the remote. And you can you can change levels, you can adjust EQs, you can do whatever you need to do on the remote app. So it's incredibly useful and incredibly powerful. Rich says, I struggle as someone technology orientated to understand using faders on flat glass surface. I love a tablet, but I wouldn't mix on one. Yeah, a lot of people would share that particular opinion as well, and I am one of those. But as I said, my friend is just totally a whiz with it. He's amazing. I personally couldn't get it to respond how I wanted to. And again, you know, for as much as people talk about, hey, it's great, you know, being tactile. Yeah, you are touching the screen, but you're not really touching a real actual fader. And that's one of the things I love about the Studio Live mixers, is that I have an actual fader under my finger that I can actually move and can control Studio One from the console. And I do that a lot. When I mix, this is how I mix. My hand is rarely on the mouse, it's on the fader ports, or my hands are on my Studio Live mixer, which is, you can't really see it, it's right in front of me. But yeah, that's what I use. And I wouldn't really want to use a glass surface, to be really honest. And so I'm with Rich on that one. Billy Morgan says, great show, good night everyone, stay safe. Thank you very much, I appreciate you dropping by. Most definitely. Ronald Figueroa says, is the version of Notion I get with Sphere a full-featured version? Of course it is. Of course it is. Just like Studio One. It's Studio One 5 Professional that you get with Persona Sphere. You also get Notion 6, which is for desktop, PC, and Mac. And of course, it's the full version of Notion. There are two Notion applications that Presonus makes. One is Notion 6, which I've talked about for desktop and for Mac, for PC and Mac, I should say. But we also make an iPad app called Notion for iOS. And it is a slimmer, slightly streamlined, slightly stripped down version of Notion, but it uses the same sound library, albeit the samples are a little bit more compressed, and I don't mean compressed by audio compression. I mean they are slightly more data compressed in order to fit onto an iPad device and to run on it nicely. And there are some other limitations, like on Notion for desktop, you get to write with 4 voices per stave. So, for example, if you're writing something for classical guitar, you may want to use all 4 voices, particularly if it's classical guitar, so it could be fingerstyle. You may want to be writing in all 4 voices, or at least 3 voices. On the iPad, you only get 2 voices, so there is that limitation, and there are a few others. But Notion for PC and Mac, which is Notion 6, is the full version of Notion 6 that you get. No limitations. That's the whole point of Persona Sphere. No limits. Let's see. My friend did a PA for Rose Bowl and did amphitheater shows stateside where he used an iPad to set up all on stage using Persona's remotes. Right, yes, that's the other value of the iPad app. or the iPad is that there is an application that you can use that integrates with the Studio Live mixers, which means you can mix on the iPad, or you can set up cue mixes for folks that are on the stage using the iPad. And so let's say, you want to check out what the mix sounds like in the sweet spot in that stereo, the center of the stereo image. So you may walk away from your desk and you may go and stand in the center aisle or something like that. If you've got the app with you on your iPad, you can make some adjustments remotely without having to go back to your desk, which again is another really powerful use case for things like UC Surface, which is the app I'm talking about, for iPad. So that's an incredibly useful function. Let's see. Dwayne says, I mix live bands on the iPad using universal control, all glass faders. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I wasn't saying that it's bad. I wasn't saying using a touchscreen is bad. I wasn't saying using, an iPad app is bad. It isn't. It's actually really, really powerful. It's just, for me personally, I prefer actual faders to mix on rather than, a glass screen. But, each to their own. Whatever you want to use, however it works best for you. For me, I prefer actual faders. Some people, they're perfectly happy using virtual faders on a touchscreen. And that's great. If you're good at that, and if that's what works for you, then do it. Absolutely. Not going to knock it. Ronald Figueroa says, so could I use iOS Notion to display lead sheets / chord charts? You can certainly write lead sheets, and you can certainly write chords into a lead sheet on Notion for iOS. Absolutely. And the cool thing is that you can email that, you can send your iPad composition to yourself via AirDrop or iCloud, or you could send it via email, and then you could open it up in Notion 6 on your desktop, and you can continue your work on there. So, and vice versa, you can send to and from your desktop device using Notion 6 and your iPad or iPhone using Notion for iOS. So you can send between the two applications pretty much seamlessly. And the other cool thing is that if you have Studio One and Notion on the same computer, on the same network, or even on different computers but on the same network, you can send from Studio One to Notion, and you can send from Notion to Studio One. And it works great. I know because both my computers have both applications on them. And so if I'm working on something over on here, or I'm testing something on the Mac, and I decide I want to see how it works on this computer, I can send it from there to here over the network, and it just instantly opens up, and then I can carry on testing. So if I'm testing, for example, if I'm testing a customer's score, and they use an iPad, and I'm working, they use a Mac, and they send me the Mac score, I can open it up on the Mac, and then I can go, I wonder how this works on a PC, and then I can just send it to this computer on the PC, and it's dead easy. I can just open it up and carry on, and then I can send it back. Dead easy. Very, very useful. Just Bob says, all kids know today is glass surface benefits both old and new school. Yes, that's definitely true. Rich says, old habits die hard. Yeah, they do. But here's the thing. I learned how to mix on an SSL 4000E console. That's what I learned on. So I learned using faders. I learned using actual knobs for EQs and compressors and buttons to press to send a channel to a bus, and then a bus fader and a bus compressor and that kind of stuff. I learned all of that on an SSL, and there was no DAW involved. That's where I first learned mixing. I was a kid. I was 15, 16 years old, and that's what got me into mixing, was the fact that I could do it all with faders. I could ride them for automation. It was exciting. And there was no screens to look at back then, so we didn't get hung up on what color channels should be. We didn't get hung up on whether the waveform on the screen was drawing as precisely as we would like it to be. We didn't get hung up on those things because those things just didn't exist. And so, to a degree, there is a sense where there is old habits die hard. That's not to say that I don't embrace new things and I don't embrace new technologies, because I'm working with new technologies all the time. It's part of my job. But, there are things that I'm much more comfortable with and work much more quickly with, and real actual faders is one of those. That's not to say I won't use this to mix on, or I won't use my iPad to mix on, or, I won't use another touch screen surface to mix on, because I will. I'll do it. I will adapt. It's not a problem. But, we all have personal preferences. Some people will absolutely prefer to use a 10-point touch screen. And some people will prefer actual physical faders. I prefer physical faders. It's just my personal preference. But I'm not going to knock anybody who uses something else. Billy Morgan is quoting Billy Joel, saying, "Only the good die young." You know what? That is a great song. That is one of my favorite songs of his. Yeah, it's a great song. Billy Joel is one of the great songwriters of the modern era. Billy Morgan says, "So if an asteroid destroys Earth tonight, me and the cockroaches are running this." Yeah, that's if you survive, Billy. All right, folks, we're going to call it an end to the show there. We are past 1 a.m. here, and I have to be up in the morning to take my kids to school. Such is life. Life is very entertaining. But thanks very much, everybody, for coming to the show tonight. You guys are awesome, and we had some great questions, and it looks like the show was stable throughout, which is great. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I will see you all on Wednesday over on the Home Studio Trainer channel for Songwriting Simplified. It's going to be great as we head on to Christmas. We got a whole bunch of shows that we have planned as we go through the Christmas period. So watch out for that, and a big thank you to all of you for watching. Big thank you to my good friend Louis Tuturi over at Alps Media, who is awesome, who has helped me out considerably this week. He has been awesome. He's not here tonight, unfortunately, to hear me say it, but hopefully he'll catch me on the replay. So until then, folks, I bid you all adieu, good night, bon nuit, hasta luego. Good night.